Back on Inside Tennessee this morning, breaking down the Knox County mayoral debate. Again, remember, this is a primary election, so we saw 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats on stage together. One of them will move on from each party and meet in the general in August. Don Bosch, let's listen to your first highlight, and then we'll break it down.
One of the things that I noticed is that everyone wants to see change, and they want to see change now. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We always come up with these great plans, but we don't carry them out.
Don, that's Democrat Rhonda Gallman.
I think, one, like Susan said, and I appreciate the fact that, Susan as a Republican said it's good that Democrats are running, and it is good that my party are putting up good candidates to run and starting this process. And we're seeing it statewide, we're certainly seeing it local, but we are in Knox County, not the city of Knoxville. And if Democrats are going to succeed, I think they're going to struggle with divisive politics, meaning, I'm not sure, as Rhonda suggested, that people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. I think sentiment in Knox County, and I'm a Democrat, a progressive, I think it's pretty high and pretty good. There are certainly serious issues in this county that need to be addressed. And certainly in the neighborhoods that Rhonda lives in and has advocated in for many years, I understand where she's coming from, but it is a county-wide race with a Republican base in the county, and the only way a Democrat, I think, is going to succeed is ultimately to appeal to crossover voters, to independents, and that's a hard chore, but it can be done. I just don't think that the message that both Rhonda and Linda professed during their openings, saying, 50% are women, and we need Democrats and Democrats and Democrats and Democrats. We do. But I don't think you can quite say it like that if you want to win in Knox County.
Yeah, I was, Linda particularly stressed the Democrat Party. She talked about being a member, worked for labor unions, and it was very Democrat oriented. And I really wanted to ask her, have you looked at the vote totals in Knox County lately? Because she kept stressing that she was a Democrat.
And I'm not talking about philosophy, because I agree with her philosophy. I'm talking about political strategy.
Right.
You got to get there first to affect change. And so how do you get there? I'm not sure their message is going to help them get there initially.
That was not a message that I would have certainly put out on television.
All right, let's listen to your second highlight, and we'll talk about that in moments.
As a woman, I felt we are more than 50% of the population, and I believe our voices need to be heard. I think that we can bring change. One voice in politics is not good. You need several voices to come together. I know how to work with people. I've managed people through my life. When you're managing Knox County Democratic Party, it can become very challenging.
She got a little chuckle there as well. You were talking about highlights.
Right.
And Don, it's speaking to exactly what you're talking about.
This is what I was talking about. Again, I completely agree with Linda. I mean, I think that it's important to have female leadership. Madeline Morero certainly demonstrated that on the city side. But in this world of divisive politics, when you're in a predominantly Republican or if you were in a predominantly Democratic area, you have to be careful because you've got to draw those centrists or you're not going to prevail. And so I think in messaging, you've got to be careful about what you're doing, particularly in a forum where there are both Republicans and Democrats. And while she's got a posture to win the primary, she's got to think down the road that if she gets to the general, how is she going to compete and be competitive and even possibly win in the general election?
You're nodding your head, Susan.
No, he's right. And I mean, maybe she was just appealing to the Democrat. I mean, that would be my message.
And that would be fine if this were just a Democratic debate. That's right.
If we see a big turnout in the primary for Democrats, do you think that will bode well for future candidates or maybe modifying the voice in the future in the county and seeing if there's more traction?
Well, sure it will, but there aren't too many competitive Democratic races at the local level. We will see a bigger turnout, in my opinion, but it's tough. But if we look at it from past years and we see a significant blip, then yes, I think it does bode well. And again, it's a groundswell. It doesn't start all in one race. But it's a groundswell. We're seeing it on a national level certainly already, but seeing it on a local level, we're a little slower here in Knox County to see those things. And Tommy Shumpert was a fine Democratic county mayor for many years, so we've done it and we can do it again.
Let's listen to your third highlight from the debate on Thursday night.
We're growing at a pace that's outpacing our ability to build roads, schools, and the infrastructure necessary for those folks coming in. In the next few years, the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to add up to 50,000 people in our population. We got to have a place to put them. We got to have a place to move them. We got to have places for them to work.
Don, why'd you choose that?
I really thought Brad Anders did a fine job being very specific with his answers to your questions, to the questions proposed. I thought he gave concrete examples. And the infrastructure thing is something I think that really does resonate with the overall base of Knox County. The other two Republican candidates, as well as the Democratic candidates, spoke of the opioid crisis. Absolutely critical. I think it is one of the most important things. But again, from a political strategy standpoint, I'm not sure if you went and polled 1,000 voters in Knox County that the opioid crisis would be number one. I think things like infrastructure, roads, schools, buildings, bridges, sidewalks, those are the things that citizens are concerned about when they elect their local leaders. And I thought Brad knocked that out of the park.
John, was there a question that we didn't get to, or one that came in that, again, most of these questions, all of them came from our viewers. Was there one that you would have loved to have heard the candidates ask?
You know, I probably would have probed a little bit further in regards to their thoughts on development and accommodating development versus accommodating quality of life issues with the neighborhood. Very much in this county, we have a history of saying, trust the developer. The developer will deliver. I think, and we heard it that night of the debate where it's all marketable, what's marketable and what have you. But, you know, I've sensed for a while now that there is a desire amongst some people in this county to demand more of developers, to hold them to a higher standard than just slapping up a house in a subdivision and saying, buy it if you want it.
Without sidewalks, I might.
Correct.
Right.
And we're gonna talk about that.
Yes, we are. We're going to have your highlights. Susan, you mentioned you would have liked to have heard who they would surround themselves with.
Yeah, and that's a hard answer at this point in time, and most people are not going to promise cabinet positions to anybody, but I do think it's important to know who, in fact, you will surround yourself with, because that's important. You can't do, no one can do it all, and I don't know that about any of the candidates. I really don't know who they would select to be their inner
team
circle.
of rivals. Don, quickly before we break, what would have been a question you would have liked to have heard them address?
I think that it's a little remiss right now, and I'm not trying to pick on Bob Thomas, but the ethics committee in concern, I think I would have liked to heard just sort of position on ethics and what the code is going to be going forward. What standards are they going to adhere to if they were elected as county mayor? Democrats and Republicans, I know that's a hot button right now for Bob as a county commissioner, but I think all of them needed to address that, because really, when we go back to all the way back to Mike Ragsdale and some other officials, that's a very important thing in this community, the ethics and integrity of all the elected offices.
When we come back, we'll run through John North's highlights from the Knox County mayoral debate right after this.